Contract patterns generator. In animals, a movement is coordinated by a cluster of neurons in the spinal cord called the central contract patterns generator, CPG. This produces signals that drive muscles to contract rhythmically in a way that produces running or walking, depending on the pattern of pulses. A simple signal from the brain instructs the CPG to switch between modes, such as going from standstill to walking. The ocean gets warm. The ocean has been getting bluer, according to a study published in the journal Nature. But that's not really good news for the planet. It means that the plants that give the ocean its green tint aren't doing well. Scientists say that's because the ocean has been getting warmer. Water crisis. Now that story has been scotched, as only part of contingency planning. But it was a symptom of the dramatic turn of events in South Australia, and it flushed out other remarks from water academics and people like Tim Flannery, indicating that things were really much worse than had been foreshadowed, even earlier this year. So is Adelaide, let alone some whole regions of South Australia, in serious bother? Considering that the vast amount of its drinking water comes from the beleaguered Murray, something many of us outside the state may not have quite realized is a predicament, something we have to face up to as a nation. Traffic jam. For the first time, Japanese researchers have conducted a real-life experiment that shows how some traffic jams appear for no apparent reason. They placed the 22 vehicles on a single track and asked the drivers to cruise around at a constant speed of 30 kilometers an hour. At first, traffic moves smoothly, but soon the distance between cars started to vary and vehicles clumped together at one point on the track. But the jam spread backward around the track like a shockwave at a rate of about 20 kilometers an hour. Real-life jams move backward at about the same speed. Integrated ticketing. In 2004, we created an integrated ticketing system in southeast Queensland. We introduced a paper ticket that allowed you to travel across each of the 3 travel modes in southeast Queensland: bus, train, and ferry. The second stage of integrated ticketing will be the introduction of a smart card. The smart card will enable people to store value on the card and use the card for traveling on the system. Barcode scanners. Many different types of barcode scanning machines exist, but they all work on the same fundamental principles. They all use the intensity of light, reflected from a series of black and white strips, to tell a computer what code it is seeing. White stripes reflect light very well, while black stripes reflect hardly any light at all. The barcode scanner shines light sequentially across a barcode, simultaneously detecting and recording the pattern of reflected and non-reflected light. The scanner then translates this pattern into an electrical signal that the computer can understand. All scanners must include computer software to interpret the barcode once it's been entered. This simple principle has transformed the way we are able to manipulate data and the way in which many businesses handle record keeping. CEO. That brings us to the CEO's second duty: building everyone, or more accurately, building the senior team. All the executives report to the CEO, so it's the CEO's job to hire, fire, and manage the executive team. From coaching CEOs, I actually think this is the most important skill of all. Because when a CEO hires an excellent senior team, that team can keep the company running. If a CEO were to hire a poor senior team, the CEO will end up spending all of their time trying to deal with their team, and not nearly enough time dealing with all the other aspects to their job. The senior team can, and often does, develop the strategy for the company, but ultimately it's the CEO who makes the final go, no-go decision on strategy. Lawrence Stephen Lowry was an English artist. Many of his drawings and paintings depict Penlebury, Lancashire, where he lived and worked for more than 40 years, and also Salford and its surrounding areas. Lowry is famous for painting scenes of life in the industrial districts of northwest England in the mid-20th century. He developed a distinctive style of painting and is best known for his urban landscapes, peopled with human figures often referred to as matchstick men. He painted mysterious, unpopulated landscapes, brooding portraits, and the unpublished marionette works, which were only found after his death. Religion. Yet my study of the history of religion has revealed that human beings are spiritual animals. Indeed, there is a case for arguing that Homo sapiens is also homo religious. Men and women started to worship gods as soon as they became recognizably human. They created religions at the same time as they created works of art. This was not simply because they wanted to propitiate powerful forces, but these early faiths express the wonder and mystery that seems always to have been an essential component of the human experience of this beautiful yet terrifying world. Volkswagen. Despite posting healthy profits, Volkswagen shares trade at a discount to peers due to a bad reputation amongst investors. High capital expenditure and its close links to the state of Lower Saxony, which effectively has a blocking minority. A disastrous capital hike, an expensive foray into the trucks business, and an uncertainty about the reason for a share buyback have in recent years left investors bewildered. The main problem with VW is the past. Many investors have been very disappointed and frightened away, said one Paris-based fund manager. VW shares trade about 9 times 2002 estimated earnings, compared to BMW's 19, and are the second cheapest in the sector. Peru timber. Sepahua, a ramshackle town on the edge of Peru's Amazon jungle, nestles in a pocket on the map where a river of the same name flows into the Urubamba. That pocket denotes a tiny patch of legally loggable land sandwiched between 4 natural reserves, all rich in mahogany and accessible from the town. Boundaries are on maps, says a local logger. Maps are only in Lima, the capital. In 2001, the government, egged on by the WWF, a green group, tried to regulate logging in the relatively small part of the Peruvian Amazon where this is allowed. It abolished the previous system of annual contracts. Instead, it auctioned 40-year concessions to areas ruled off on a map, with the right to log 5% of the area each year. The aim was to encourage strict management plans and sustainable extraction. Walmart CEO comments. Walmart's core shoppers are running out of money much faster than a year ago due to rising gasoline prices, and the retail giant is worried, CEO Mike Duke said Wednesday. We're seeing core consumers under a lot of pressure, Duke said at an event in New York. There's no doubt that rising fuel prices are having an impact. Walmart shoppers, many of whom live paycheck to paycheck, typically shop in bulk at the beginning of the month when their paychecks come in. Lately, they're running out of money at a faster clip, he said. German writer and his books. This site contains a comprehensive listing of the works of Norbert Elias, a German sociologist. The site lists not only his published books and articles, but also manuscripts and oral communications in a variety of media, and including reprints and translations. The material has been catalogued, cross-referenced, and organized by date. There is, however, no search facility. Rosa Parks. It was there that Rosa Parks, an African-American woman, refused to vacate her seat in the middle of the bus so that a white man could sit in her place. She was arrested for her civil disobedience. Parks' arrest, a coordinated tactic meant to spark a grassroots movement, succeeded in catalyzing the Montgomery bus boycott. Parks was chosen by King as the face for his campaign because of Parks' good standing with the community, her employment, and her marital status. Earlier in 1955, Claudette Colvin, a 15-year-old African-American girl, had been arrested for the same crime. However, King and his civil rights compatriots did not feel that she would serve as an effective face for the civil rights campaign. Fostering a child. According to the Australian Institute of Family Studies in 2014, an 11-year-old boy was unable to live with his family due to child abuse. But a bringing in the foster care system means he has no one to help him. It's not his fault, yet he is being penalized for something he can't change. He went to 2 schools while he was in foster care, and one was Barra-Beacon School, formerly Barra-Beacon Language College, is a mixed comprehensive for foster children. Children like him involved with Child Protective Services were shown to have consistently low average math and reading standardized test scores. One of the recommendations was to send him to his relatives who were willing to take care of him until he was 18. This resulted in a positive outcome in academic achievement. Sea level rise. The rising sea level led to 36,000 people dying each year. This number could increase if the sea level ceaselessly goes up, scientists notified. According to research, if sea level rises an additional 50 centimeters, approximately 86 million people will die. If sea levels rises 1 meter, 168 million people could die all around the world. Language. It is wrong to exaggerate the similarity between language and other cognitive skills, because language stands apart in several ways. For one thing, the use of language is universal. All normally developing children learn to speak at least one language, and may learn more than one. By contrast, not everyone becomes proficient at complex mathematical reasoning. Few people learn to paint well, and many people cannot carry a tune. Because everyone is capable of learning to speak and understand language, it may seem to be simple. But just the opposite is true. Language is one of the most complex of all human cognitive abilities. Indian IT. Innovation in India is as much due to entrepreneurialism as it is to IT skills, says Arun Maria, chairman of Boston Consulting Group in India. Indian businessmen have used IT to create new business models that enable them to provide services in a more cost-effective way. This is not something that necessarily requires expensive technical research. He suggests the country's computer services industry can simply outsource research to foreign universities if the capability is not available locally. This way, I will have access to the best scientists in the world without having to produce them myself, said Mr. Maria. Issue currency. In most countries, it is not only the government, through the central banks, who are permitted to issue currency, but in Scotland, 3 banks are still allowed to issue banknotes. The first Scottish bank to do this was the Bank of Scotland. When this bank was founded in 1695, Scots coinage was in short supply and of uncertain value, compared with the English, Dutch, Flemish, or French coin. To face growth of trades, demand was necessary to remedy this lack of adequate currency. Railway development. Roads of Wales called wagonways were being used in Germany as early as 1550. Those primitive railed roads consisted of wooden rails over which horse-drawn wagons or carts moved with greater ease than over dirt roads. Wagonways were the beginnings of modern railroads. By 1776, iron had replaced the wood in the rails and wheels on the carts. 10 years later, Englishman William Jessop designed the first wagons with flanged wheels. The flange was a groove that allowed the wheels to grip the rail better, and this was an important design that carried over to later locomotives.